welcome back. We are doing another sit down chat about book video. I have been putting this off for forever because I really struggle with them. I've got my laptop here with a few notes just to remind my social media adult brain what I wanted to say, because I have the attention span of a gerbil. So that is what we're working with today, guys, and that is why usually I don't do sit down videos, but I really wanted to talk to you guys about autumny, spooky, Halloweeny books, and I want to talk about 10 of them I think you should read this autumn if you haven't already, or even just read one of them and I'd be so happy. Because look, I'm a summer gal, I love summer, but I also love autumn. Start off this video strong with the architect of detective crime, whodunit, like no other, and that is Agatha Christie. I've read, I don't even know how many Agatha Christie books, so many of them. They're so cozy. They're the proper detective novel you can't compare. And even when like people come out with these kind of cozy detective, it's like, no, it just can't compare to the Dame Agatha Christie, okay? So if you've never read Agatha Christie, this is your sign to read it. Most of her books aren't that long. The one book I'm going to ask you to start with is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Is a story set in a small village in England where a man named Roger Ackroyd is killed, and Hercule Poirot comes to investigate, and it is a very fun, entertaining whodunit that you will never guess, and I never could have guessed it. It's just, I think it's one of the best ones. You could also read, if you've read that one already and you want to try a different one, try And Then There Were None. I think that's another good one to start with. It's on an island and people are getting killed one by one. I think a lot of movie adaptations have been based upon this story, but my lord above, it is a good one. So either of those, perfect to get you reading some Agatha Christie. Okay, next we're going to move on to this is a double one. I did a double one, and I'm going to do another double one. I don't think will be everyone's cup of tea, but the two books I'm talking about here are by Grady Hendrix, and the first one is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying, and the second one is My Best Friend's Exorcism, which is like one of the only books I have here to discuss because I don't have many of them here. I love his books, and well, I've only read these two, but I love them both. I think I prefer the Southern, I'm just going to call it the Southern Vampire one. These are kind of like horror. There's definitely like some gruesome, gory things. The Southern Book Club's thing is kind of like a Stepford Wives situation where you're kind of in this world where they're all, the wives are the perfect wives and they do what their husbands tell them and all that kind of stuff. Basically, a vampire arrives in their community, but people don't realise that. But gruesome things start happening and weird things start happening and people start changing, and it's just so good and so poppy. I don't know how to explain it. It's like camp, I guess. Is that what you'd say? It's like fun. The references are fun, the way he explains things. I just have a really fun time reading his books. And it's the same thing with this one. I can't remember what year the Southern, but it's definitely not in current time. This is, I think, 80s. Well, yes, it's definitely 80s. And it is about two best friends, and one of them gets possessed by an evil devil, and it's about her friend trying to save her friend. But there's lots of, again, gory stuff. They're in high school and her friend is not being believed, that something's wrong with her. She's kind of seeing a side to her that no one else does. It unravels, she turns irritable, but then strange incidents occur. you're in high school in America in the 1980s, so there's that added to it too. It is, again, gory. There's gory, gruesome bits, but it's a fun, poppy read. People are probably like, Maureen, it's not. If you've read it, you're like, what? I'm like, I don't know. I don't get bothered by things like that, but I'd say other people will. So I definitely, I do. Like, I'm like, oh, but I don't then think about it for ages after. I'm like, it's a book. I can very much detach myself from books, and really this book and the Southern book club, the Southern's book club's guide to vampire slaying. Seriously, read them if you haven't, and you like fun, spooky, gory, I'd say. Like, think about Scream or something in a book. Do you know what I'm saying? It's that vibe where it's fun but gory, and I love the Scream movies. So yeah, that is my petition for you to read those books. Next book we're talking about is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is one of the first classic novels I ever read when I was a teenager. And I just remember, I actually haven't read it since then, but that's how much that book stuck with me, and I still think about it. I need to reread it. I actually have it at home in my childhood bedroom, so I need to pick it up. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because that for me is one of my honestly favourite books of all time. Number one, I want to say right off the bat is, it is a really short book. So there is no excuse for you guys not to read it. It is so short. And especially if you're thinking of reading a classic book, or you want to read a kind of horror-y Victorian London one, but you're not in the mood for reading Frankenstein, you're not in the mood for reading Dracula. Frankenstein is short too, but Dracula is very long. But you want to have a taste to see what it's like, to see if you'll like it. And that's what just randomly happened to me, that I picked it up. I think we had it at home. And it is so good. It's got it all for this time of year. I would argue wait till October until it starts to feel really autumny and really atmospheric. It's got the science part of it. It's got potions involved. It's Victorian London. There's a murder. There is fog over London. There is a mystery. There is transformation. There's science involved. It is everything you could want from a book. A small, succinct, brilliant book. Please pick it up. I bloody love it. And I'm saying this with all of this and not having read it since I was like years ago. So really, really, it has stuck with me. And for such a small book, it packs an almighty punch, you know? So that's that. Now, I need to actually, let's take a sip of this. That, you know that I have like a little panic attack every time I'm looking at the camera being like, what if I didn't press record? Let me check. I did. Oh my god, guys, I really panicked me there. Next book we're going to talk about, which I've mentioned before, I love it so much, is Bunny by Mona Awad. Need I say more, people? It's freaky, it's fun, it's set in an Ivy League college, there's weird stuff going on. It is kind of giving dark academia vibes. It is perfect for this time of year as well, because they're in college, there is a clique, and freaky things, freaky people, weird situations. If you like movies like The Craft or The Heathers, then definitely read this book, because it gives me that kind of clicky, creepy, spooky, which it's not witches, but there's stuff going on, and there's, you know, I don't know, it just is such a good book. I really, really highly recommend. So that is book number 4. Or 6 if you're counting the little extra ones I did. I did, because I can't help myself. I think you just need to read a Stephen King book. And what I mean by that is, if you've never read Stephen King, you truly are missing out. He is a master of his craft. Like Agatha Christie, there's just no comparable people like to what he does. Is just amazing. Every time I read a book of his, I am like, wow, it is just unreal how one person can write the volume that he writes, but also just so well. I have only read 4 of his books. And you'll be like, why have you only read 4 of his books if you absolutely love them? Well, first of all, I really like to savor certain authors and things where he has such a huge collection of books that I can choose from. And I know some of his older ones are definitely the better ones. He still makes great books now. I know that, and I know because I'm about to give you a recommendation. It's just that I like to save, and I want to save these books because they're so special to me. And what I do is every year when I go on holidays, or every time I go on holidays, I save myself a Stephen King book to read, because you get transported to this world and you get to live in this world while you're on this holiday. They're also normally very long. Well, all the ones I read were really long. I have read Needful Things, The Stand, 11, 22, 63, and The Outsider. Because of these, like, first of all, this is not choosing my favourite, because my favourite I'll talk about when I do my favourite books of all time, which will come at some stage. But the book I'm going to give to recommend for this one it's slightly shorter, and it's called The Outsider. It's a fairly new book, and people were like, oh, why are you giving that book? That was my first introduction to Stephen King, so it was the first book I ever read, and I have read some of his best work since then, and I still really enjoy The Outsider. It's also shorter, so that's why I'm giving it as a recommendation, and it's creepy. Just the idea of the book in itself is crazy. It's basically about this man who is this dad, like very wholesome, loving guy, who is accused of, I think anyway, I'm not going to say it, but of doing a terrible, terrible crime. There's several eyewitness testimonies to know that he was taking this child. It happened to a child, by the way. So trigger warnings everywhere. You're reading Stephen King. There's going to be trigger warnings. And it's about basically trying to figure out, was it him who did it, or was it something else? So that is my recommendation. But to be honest, any Stephen King book, because you might go, no, what about Misery? What about It? What about all of the other books that you can read? I haven't read them yet, so I can't recommend them, but I'm sure I am going to read them at some stage. They are on my TBR, and trust me, on my next holiday, which is happening very soon, I'll be reading a Stephen King. I still need to decide which one that is, but there we go. Stephen King. Next book we have, again, I'm being so generous, and I'm going to give you 2 books by the same author. And these books are Lucy Foley, The Hunting Party, and The Guest List. The Hunting Party has a place in my heart. And I know people actually prefer The Guest List, but I much prefer The Hunting Party because I read it first, and they're both similar premises, as in people are in a certain area kind of cut off from the rest of the world, and somebody dies and you're trying to figure out. I don't know how to explain. The Hunting Party, not much preferred, but I definitely preferred. There was a certain kind of, and is this the right word, bitchiness in The Hunting Party that I live for. And the people weren't great people. The characters had bite to them. I just loved the explanations of the dynamic of the friend group. And you're in a snow-drifted Scotland, and it just, I really enjoyed it. So if you're thinking of reading Lucy Foley, because I know I haven't actually read her most recent one, because I read it and I was like, no, I don't want that. And I didn't really love the Paris apartment one. So these 2 books I recommend, and I'm giving you The Guest List there because maybe people would prefer that. You're on an island in Ireland and it's wet and rainy and windy. But to me, my real recommendation here is read The Hunting Party. Next. Hello. This is a gothic romance set in the 19th century, and it follows our narrator and our main character, Jane Eyre. She's orphaned and then she goes to be a governess at Thornfield Hall. The master of the house is Edward Rochester, and she starts to work there, and it's creepy. She starts to fall in love with Mr. Rochester, and there's some weird goings on in the house that she's not sure what's happening. Movements in the night, something not quite right. She can't figure out Mr. Rochester and what he wants. I definitely think this is, if you're looking for a real, if you want to get your teeth into a big classic and you want it written by a woman and you want it atmospheric, read this book, because it is a good gothic romance. Highly recommend. The next books I want to go into a little bit something more fun, and these are books I actually listened to on audiobook, I believe. I actually wasn't going to mention them, but I was like, do you know what? These are really fun books, and for people who are like, I don't really like the recommendations you've given so far, I really think maybe you'll like this recommendation. They're by Erin. The first one is called The X-Hex, and the second one is called The Kiss Curse. And you're basically following well, let's just talk about the first one because they're both similar enough. But following Vivian, who lives in a town called Gravesglen, and it's about their little family of witches who live there. People who run the town are the warlocks, and one of them, who she dated when she was younger, comes back to the town for what she thinks is going to be a fleeting visit, but things start going wrong and he stays there longer so they can figure out what's going on, and kind of like enemies to lovers, but just more kind of cuteness. There's no real hatred there. There is a little bit. It's so cute and like cheesy, but like almost giving you the Gilmore Girls vibe, but even more witchy. So think about Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Nickelodeon one. Think about Gilmore Girls. Think about Practical Magic. Think about all those kind of cozy stuff that you'd watch to get yourself in the Halloween mood, and then put it in a little romance cute novel, and that's what you'll get with these books. So if that's what you're in the mood for, and even if you don't want to sit down and read it, that's why sometimes I'm like, you know what, I want to listen to this in an audiobook. Popped it in the audiobook and I really enjoyed it. I mean, they are cheesy, but they are lovely. And if that's, that's exactly what you're feeling like, and you're like, I want that perfect Halloween, cozy, candles lit, magic spells, smell of potions, little bit of spooky, witches, spells, love. This, my friends, is the book for you, because I just think they're sweet, and sometimes all we need is a big warm hug around this time of year when it's getting a bit cold outside, and that certainly will put you in the Halloween mood. The Secret History by Donna Tartt and If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I'm giving both of them because I think, okay, The Secret History is obviously a well-loved classic, and it is, you can't compare the two. Well, you can, because they are similar in a way. And the story is, both stories are based on the murder of somebody in Ivy League college, and somebody is murdered and you don't know who committed the murder. In one of them, that's just the main premise of it in terms of they're the same, but I'm just going to give you options if you want to read either. Like, how many times these books have probably been recommended to you in these books, that's why I've left it till last, because I don't need to be recommending them to you again, do I? So The Secret History is based on our narrator is Richard, and he was one of the students in their classics program. One of the friends is called Bunny. We're basically getting the story in sequential events of when Richard joins up until Bunny's murder, and what happened is revealed. And it's just so much more than just that. It's kind of like a detective novel, and you're finding bits of information throughout. It's beautifully written. It's dense. There's a lot going on, and it's really, really, really brilliant. The If We Were Villains is a much shorter book, so if you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this, the sheer volume of The Secret History, then try read If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. That is based on a group of people in a drama, kind of, they do Shakespearean drama in a very elitist drama school in, again, New England. It is about somebody gets murdered, but in this one of the classmates is actually in jail first, but a detective comes to visit him, and we hear the story again and see if it actually was him. Now, one of the main things in The Secret History is, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to read it because this is like, people say too much about it. And I think that's why I went into The Secret History and I was like, okay, so I know this, so I know something. I'm not, if you've read the book, you'll know. I could have said it there, but I'm not going to. But yeah, so The Secret History, there's a reason people rave about it. It's amazing. And again, if you're not quite feeling up to that many pages yet, why don't you try If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, because it's the same vibey kind of thing. And if you like that, you'll certainly 100% like The Secret History. And I think, my friends, that is it. I think I've done 10 books. I've definitely done more than 10, but I've definitely done 10 authors. I am so excited for this time of year. Let me know what you want to see from me in this time of year, because once I get back from holidays, I'm getting into my cozy era. Do you know what I'm saying? We're going candles. We're getting the Halloween decorations up. And we are watching, I'm making my boyfriend watch Halloween, after thriller, after horror, after thing, again and again and again. That is where we're going with it, guys, once we go to autumn. And then it's my birthday. I actually think I will do, at the start of October, books I want to read this spooky season, because I've got saved a few, and I might do a little video on that. So do let me know if you like these sitting down videos at all. I mean, maybe I'll pepper them in between. I've actually kind of enjoyed talking about this because I really enjoyed all these books. So I was like excited to tell you guys about them, and maybe you want to read them. I hope it makes sense. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please please give the video a thumbs up if you did like it. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.